So, hi, my name's Riley Kammerer. I ranch just about 8 miles northeast of here. I'm honored that Sean asked me to come and talk to you guys about what we're doing here. We're probably the closest producer that's in the building right now. And I serve on the board of directors for the South Dakota Grasslands Coalition, and I'm fully immersed in regenerative ag, and so is my family. So this, whoops. It was working. There it goes. There's my family there in the front row here, and my mom, Koki, and my dad, Elliot, in the back. So grateful they could come and give us the opportunity to live our dreams of ranching. So our vision is healthy land, wholesome cattle, and happy family. And our mission is we use the resources God's entrusted us with to stimulate robust soil biology and diverse plant communities with regenerative land management practices in order to produce profitable, nutrient-dense, life-giving food from the earth. And in a nutshell, this is what we do now. We grow more grass. We don't say we build fences. We build rest and recovery periods for our grasses. And it hasn't always been that way. We've been really immersed in this. It's been a 10-year journey, but we've really been dove in, 4 or 5 years ago. But this patch up north in our summer pasture used to be bare soil from my management practices, and we're now changing it. We grow more grass, period. And 5 years into this, we're starting to see our native warm seasons coming back. And my dad's 70, and he said he's never seen some of these plants come back. So we're really excited the work we do. But biggest thing is we now calve and sync with nature, and we've balanced our ranch out, and we use stockpiled forage through the year. It's part of our drought plan. It's just part of our forage plan, period. And it hasn't always been like that. I did everything the conventional way. I worked myself into a hole, and we were winter calving, February, March, April. I used to feed a lot of silage. We don't do any of that anymore. I've been on a relentless mission to cut all the inputs out of our business, and we've been very successful at it. But I had built a business that was not even sustainable and couldn't even make my groceries for my family, and so I had to go. I found a job. The only job I could find was working for the co-op, insurance, grocery money, and I spent a lot of time in southeast Montana and northeast Wyoming and western South Dakota spraying and fertilizing, and I got to see the worst of the worst. We all keep our best ground right along the road, right, for the neighbors. But I got to go deep into places, and this was when I first learned, the first time I ever saw the rainfall simulator was Ray Archuleta did it, and absolutely knocked me out of my chair. And once you start learning this stuff, you can't unlearn it. And right before that, I had just bought a whole bunch of tillage equipment, of course, right? So this was the kind of stuff I saw. And I saw soil degradation and soil loss on a mass scale. And I saw farmers and ranchers that were flat broke and looking for me to put a Band-Aid on their business. And I didn't have the answers for it. In the winter, I hauled a lot of feed to guys that were trying to feed their way out of a drought. And I was hauling a semi-load of feed up to a guy up by Broadus, Montana in March, and so they thought it was a good idea to go till that up and probably plant oats in the middle of a drought. And the wind picked up, and I got to watch all this topsoil blow away, all of it. It was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen, and I've been through a lot. And I decided right then that if I was going to stay in agriculture, that I was going to do things different from now on, and I wasn't going to be part of the soil loss. I was going to build soil. The diversity loss, the loss of our rangeland plants and our rangeland birds and wildlife species. I was going to do things different. But even then, this is the paradigm that we have in ranching now in western South Dakota, is that we have to now feed silage to get our cows through the winter. And that's the result of a silage field right there. And we still allow it to happen. I don't know why. So I was doing everything that the experts was telling me to do, the best management practices, and we were still going backwards. We were losing soil. We were broke and miserable and on our way to quitting. But we had made that decision to change. And, one day I'd realized that was market conditions at that time, that I had fed $700 a day in hay to get the cows through the winter, and I knew our first drought year I probably wasn't going to stay in business. And so we had to change. I finally got to go to a full ranching for profit school, and it absolutely changed my life and my family's life for generations. And one thing that Dave says is knowing how to raise livestock is not the same thing as knowing how to run a business that runs livestock. And that was a turning point in my life, and where we went from there. But I realized that most of my problems came down to two things. We were calving at the wrong time, and we had our system out of balance with nature, and we were always out of feed, always out of grass. So I had to come up with new tools. The tradition in our area is just to graze it all off and substitute it with hay. Well, that doesn't work anymore. It used to, when we had cheap machinery, cheap fuel, free labor, and we still had the natural fertility in our soils, which we don't anymore. I had to come up with a new plan, and I took a ton of different schools and took my family with me, and we came up with new tools to apply to our business and change paradigms. So we talk about the 5 principles of soil health, but there's also the 6th, and it's context. And this is my context, is my girls. And I wanted to change my business and our life because I wanted to be present for them. I wanted to be a good dad and a good husband, change the way we do things. So these girls sitting right here are my context. So, we make plans, but plans don't always work. And the first year, of course, I couldn't get the cows to winter graze, was what I needed to do to cut. We went on a mission to ruthlessly cut the direct costs and the overheads out of our business, and so we could actually turn a profit. Everything's great, of course, when calves are $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, but when they're at $800, you got to learn to be a more efficient producer. And I knew we're running the numbers then, of course, where all my money was going to, and it was winter feed. Next to cow depreciation, it's probably the highest cost that anybody has in the cow-calf business is winter feed costs. And so, funny story, our little one was, my wife was 9 months pregnant with her, and we said if we're going to start grazing different and start moving fence, we got to do it now before she was born. So it was warm in November, and away we went, and my wife's marching out there, and it worked. She had a baby 2 days later. That was when we built our first polywire paddocks and had fun. But I knew if the baby was born that we probably wouldn't get into it. But that worked pretty good for a month, and then what'd it do? It turned to winter, and it started snowing. And I thought I was pretty hot stuff. I had stockpiled my first forage. Well, it all blew in off the neighboring ground. There wasn't any cover, and it filled it up with snow. So we had us an education. But we were diligent with it, and we kept through just as long as we could. Moving fence, moving these cows every 3 days. We had to teach our cows how to graze, and we had to winter graze, and we had to teach ourselves how to do it as well. So it was quite a learning curve. That first year, we slashed our hay costs by 60% the first year, and that was huge. And it's been getting better every single year. We've been getting better at this, and the cows have been better too. So this was last week, actually. That's what stockpiled forage looks like. It's a pretty grainy photo. I apologize for that, but that was 15 below with the wind blowing, and these cows are just fine. So through the Grasslands Coalition, I I'm honored to help with a lot of grazing schools and helping families out. And, one of the biggest things I hear is, well, we don't have time to do all this stuff. Well, this is just a short list of some of the things that I cut out of our ranch. And these are all massive things that eat up all of our time. And I challenge you to think that if you could cut any of those out, how much better would the quality of your life be and the quality of your family? And it's been very powerful for ours. So, how are we on? So, we always have that gap in the middle of the winters of what we can do. And traditionally, that's always been hay. We substitute with hay, and it's an expensive endeavor. So I'd inadvertently tried grazing some sorghum that froze off in 2015, and I was really impressed with what it did. Well, the soils in the hay fields at home were degraded as well. They were a brome monoculture. They'd been farmed or hayed for 100 years, and we'd taken all the carbon off, and they were almost lifeless. We had, I think, 40 inches of rain, and they wouldn't even hardly produce a hay crop. So I had the idea of, can we build these soils back with cover crops? And I applied for, and we received a conservation innovation grant from the USDA for a 3-year deal. We're going to study it. So first, my context was, can we build soils? And second was, can we replace hay feeding in western South Dakota? And so that's what we tore into, and this was our first year in the project. That was a daily move. That was 140,000 pounds of live weight to the acre. And that was in the middle of a drought, and we were able to grow that much forage. We grazed pears for 3 weeks on it, and that was the first year. Here's my mix. I've been playing with species quite a little, and this is what we've come down to. All these species seem to do really well in our area and our soil type, even on limited moisture. Started this, and it was funny, I told Kent, he's in the back, I said, one of these years is going to be a wreck. Well, it was dry. The whole project was dry, and it was a challenge, but we feel it was an extreme success. So that's what my cover crop mix looks like now. 11 species, and this was last year. So the biggest question, well, I back up here. We typically try to go in around the 1st of December and graze through as long as we can. I had the cows on it. We just pulled them off the other day because it was warming up to 50, and we're actually started our winter rotation, and we're saving what cover crop we have left for the next storm we get. It's inevitable. We'll kick them in there, and we'll just continue to graze through. The biggest question I get, is what about snow? Well, what about it? This was last year, and it filled up with snow. That's 25 below in that picture with a 20-mile north wind, and we felt sorry for the cows, and we rolled some hay out, and that hay laid there for 3 weeks. So we've really changed how these cows graze. They really don't even, they would rather do what God intended them to do, and that's be a grazing animal. This was earlier this winter, and that was really cold in that picture. That was 15 below. We grazed through this whole deal and got along just fine. That with the cold, the polar vortex we had. And last year, we cut all these cows. We fed about 60 bales of hay through the entire winter. So we've really ruthlessly cut out the haying enterprise and all the expenses that go with it. This was June 27th. That was June 28th. We got hailed out this year, and it was pretty ugly. One of the things we talk about is how we can fix a broken water cycle, and we've done that. We took a 2.5-inch rain in 10 minutes and never run any water. It all infiltrated. We're pretty proud of that. All of our moisture, we're getting all of it. It's effective going in the soil. We're growing more grass with it. And that's what we ended up with by the end of July. So it really bounced back. Part of this, we do tours every summer, and this was the flyer for this summer. And we had 85 people come, 75 or 70 the year before that. So people in this area are really curious. They want to know. Of course, they drive by it because I do all this goofy stuff along the road. But people are really wanting to know a different way. We're sick and tired of giving all our money to the corporations and leaving our pocket. And it's time that we start taking some of it back, keeping it on our farms and ranches. I was able to get Dr. Chris Nichols to come down for the tour last year, and man, I got to spend several days with her, just me and her, and we talked about a lot of stuff. And she told me that we basically know 1/10 of 1% of what's going on under the soil surface, and I believe most of nature is the same way. There's a lot we don't know and how everything's tied in. I was able to get her and Dr. Ray Ward in the soil pit together, so any of you that know them too, that was fun. It's like oil and water, but made for good conversation. So another exciting thing, these young women come to the tour and they want to know, and the kids want to know. And if we're serious about soil health, we have to get the kids to come. We have to teach these kids a different way. A lot of us are getting up there in years, and a lot of us aren't going to change too much. But if we can teach these kids a different way, that's how we're going to move the needle of soil health. I firmly believe that. Of course, we did a rainfall simulator at the place, and it was really good. I didn't get a picture of the slake test, but our soils are so stable now. You guys have probably seen the slake test with the 2 beakers, and our soil was in there for 2.5 hours. And it hadn't dissolved any. Where of course the tilled soil just exploded, and 2.5 hours later, when we dumped it out, it was still good. So we're on the right track there. We're still getting the data together. I probably won't go over it a lot today. I believe in the soil moisture is highly variable on what we did in the drought. We actually saw a huge flush of biological activity, and it actually used up some of our organic matter. But I'm gonna keep doing this for at least 2 more years on these fields, because we need long-term data and trend line data to see where we're at. 3 years in the grand scheme of things is not much, and we fought a lot of drought doing this. So right now, it's kind of inconclusive, but the one cool thing that shows out is the total organic carbon has spiked. So at least we're putting more carbon back in the soil right now than we're taking out. I think that's the most important part. But anyway, you can see here we just had a huge flush of biological activity on it, and that was with rainfall. So Terry had talked about that earlier in the session, about the moisture, and that's what it is. The cool thing is, though, is the fungal growth really went up. We're really excited to see that. It's like we know 1/10 of what's going on the soil surface, but I do know that our yield had tripled every single year we've done this. And these two spent a lot of time in D3 and D4 drought. We tripled our yield on this with 2 inches less rainfall, and that's pretty exciting to see. The economics of it, so right now we're not done grazing, so I don't have all the numbers together for the whole project, but right now I was wintering a pair for about $1.40 a day. And if you break that down, the calves will gain 2.5 to 3 pounds a day on this, and that makes my cost to gain about 15 cents on those calves. And if there's any feedlot guys in here, what is it this year? $1.20. So we're doing it for 10% of what a feed yard is. All our manure, everything's going right back into the soil. We cut the inputs out. So when I think of regenerative ranching, I think of this picture right here. And Glenn had said it yesterday that, and people don't believe that we're actually able to graze green grass in January and February. They think we're crazy. And this picture, disproves that. This was last year after we just had 6 weeks of brutal winter. And the snow just went off and we got green grass. The ground's still frozen. So this is what regenerative ranching is to me. We've got the grounds covered. We have limited disturbance. We are short duration grazing, and we rest these pastures for 12 months before we come back. There's a lot of rest there. So we have living roots year round, obviously. These plants are still growing, pumping carbon into the soil. We have diversity. I think I counted 4 different grass species just in this little clip right here. Our diversity's coming back. The warm seasons are coming back on our ranch, and that makes us very excited. And of course, the livestock integration into it. Short duration, long rest periods. And with that, we've been able to cut out even all of our protein supplement in the winter because of just this little bit of green grass. I know a lot of people that spend a lot of money on protein supplement. So I have a saying that it's how can you replace spending money with management? Well, if you think about things different and how you can tackle your problems head on with certain things, we've cut out all the supplement, most all of the hay with this right here. This is stockpiled forage, and it's so powerful. I encourage all you guys all to learn and try to go home and implement some of these steps. Maybe you've learned the last couple days. We have 3 grazing schools that we put on for the South Dakota Grasslands Coalition. If you want to learn, come and we'll teach you. It's a lot of fun. Ranching for profit, of course. So that's my contact info. If any of you want to reach out and have any questions, I'd sure be glad to talk and answer them. So we got lots of time, but answer any questions anybody's got.
So do you buy hay or do you still make hay?
We've been putting a little bit of hay up just to replace what we have, but we've been really dry. This year is the telling year. If we can make it through this without feeding any hay, then I'm going to eliminate that enterprise probably, and we'll just buy a little bit of hay to replace what we use. So
we always we stockpile hay for blizzards because of where we live.
yeah, we absolutely have to have that contingency plan for the what if happens, but we don't try to winter every year like it was, say, 1985 or something. That was horrible, but most years we can do this very successfully. So.
Have you ever thought of rotating the cover crop that you're feeding for a while with hay? Like do the cover crop for like 5 years and then do hay for
Yep.
5 years?
Yep, so we were originally going to do this for 3 years and then go back to a native seeding, but I think it needs more time. And that's what we're going to go back to is a perennial grass. Yep, absolutely. And then we got some other hay fields that are just in poor shape too that we're going to, it'll be a rotation, absolutely. So, yes, sir.
When you started your journey, what was one of the #1 criticisms you had, being especially in western South Dakota? What was your most common, like, oh, that wouldn't work here? What was your most common?
Probably everything I did. Somebody criticized me. But, so here you go. You got to get over that. You got to not worry about what people think. You got to do what's right for you and your business and your family. And just let it go. Let the coffee shop talk go. We just let it roll off our back anymore. So, does that help?
We actually got asked when we were going to spray our weedy sorghum field.
Yeah. I had a friend call me the other day and try to sell me liquid feed. And an hour after he called, after I talked to him for an hour about it, and he understood our program, what we're doing, but it's fun. So, Carol?
So what do you foresee, this gentleman's question kind of answered mine, but what do you foresee, okay, you're gonna maybe do what you're doing another 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
And then go back to some native,
Mm-hmm.
and then, will you be incorporating those cover crops then later, or just letting that native process work?
Yeah, we'll just, after about 5 years, then we'll go in with a native grass seeding on it and defer it for probably 2 years while I'm rotating into a couple other hay fields. Because they're just as depleted as this one was. So-
You just kind of started with one, and you're just gonna gradually.
Three fields, yeah. And just 285 acres is what we did. So, and we got about that much as well that needs it. But, yeah. And we probably won't hay that ground. It'll be grazed. If you think about things different, so as I'm learning and getting better at grazing and knowing, we've been taking the carbon off these fields for so long, and when this deal started getting dry 4 years ago, we had a hay field that was brown, and I just had decided we're not going to hay that. We're going to graze it. And Dad thought I was just nuts. I got 60 grazing days an acre off a hay ground that wasn't worth haying. And if you apply that to, if you can achieve that efficiency across your whole place, we got half as many cows as we need. It's very powerful what you can do with a cow. So,
When do you
Jessica.
wean?
We typically have been weaning late November, early December. This year we kept the pairs on this because I had so much cover crop, and we were able to wait out that low in the market because we had enough feed. And I saw opportunity coming down, and we'd weaned them in mid-December and sold them the first week of December or January and just knocked it out of the park. So, yeah.
When you were given the figures for what it's costing, your cost of gain on those calves, you didn't even add in the cost.
No. I think if you figure to,
If they have that calf or nothing.
yeah, and if you figure the value of gain we got out of the calf at today's market price, I was netting $400 or $500 an acre off this cover crop, and there aren't any other farm crops that you can do that with, and I did it with cows. So it's a lot of money. Not also counting the value of the nutrients that we cycled back into the soil and fed that biology. I don't even know how you come up with those numbers. It's huge. So, yes.
Do you mind sharing the cost per acre on that seed mix?
The seed mix was this year, I think, $23. It's pretty cheap. So, I figure opportunity cost and everything as well. So the cost of the hay ground and the planting, the seed mix, the herbicide and application, it's about $100 an acre. And I'm getting 125 grazing days an acre out of it this year. So, or the equivalent, 1,000-pound equivalent. So we're harvesting right at 4,000 pounds an acre with the cows. And we're leaving a nice mat of residue to plant into the next spring, just keeping that ground covered. So.
You're using that herbicide every year.
Yeah, just a very light coat of glyphosate till I find something better. But, yep.
Speak on how we weaned our calves on cover crop.
So 2 years ago, the first year we did it, we actually fence line weaned those calves there, and that was a hoot. It was a lot of fun. Those calves never lost a single pound during the weaning process. They'd come up and they'd bawl at the fence, and they'd go back and they'd eat cover crops, and it was easy. Last year we sold them right off the cow because we knew that storm was coming in December, and that proved to be a good decision. This year, the weather was good. We changed it. We were so dry in December, I was having a hard time getting my electric fence to carry any current back to ground. It was just super dry. So we didn't fence line wean them. We brought them in and we locked the cows up and we kicked the calves back out. And I had them weaned within a day and a half back on cover crops. And they just went back to gaining. It was a lot of fun. So versus the traditional way of locking those calves up for a week and losing 50 pounds and getting sick calves, and it was a lot of fun. I was a little nervous the first lap they made around the pasture, but you know what? We taught those calves to graze just like their mothers, and they put their heads down, and that was all she wrote. It was a lot of fun. So,
You did that with the hot wire?
sorry, what?
No, you did that with the hot wire fence line, you mean, the hot wire?
The first year, yeah, we built a permanent fence with 2 hots, 3 barbed, and those barbs were all ground, and we didn't have anything go through. It was a lot of fun. So, Pete,
What do you got, can you talk a little bit about your water system for the winter on these scattered fields and how that?
yeah, and I wished we'd have developed the water a little bit ahead of time before we started, but we were waited on a well for 2 years on the one. We got it in now. It's a continuous flow on a solar pump, so the cattle can just string into it all the time, which they will. We're not haying them so they don't crash the tank. The other big field, I put a tank in on the corner. I needed to really get my efficiency going. I needed probably 3 tanks and to be able to move them. So we started moving them every day. We've now backed that off to a week move because I just want to slow down in the wintertime. I don't want to have to. I mean, we can chase efficiency till we've dug a hole in the ground, but we found that week moves on the cover crop, even range land, is a good balance for what we do. And the cows will actually harvest this cover crop to the dirt if you let them. So you got to monitor it and get them off if you're going to leave any cover. So okay.
What's your advice to someone getting started on these practices?
So I would say go out and get as much education as you can, especially in the wintertime. I mean, we had to learn a different way of doing everything, and that's what I would suggest. So there's a ton of free stuff out there, and there's a ton of really outstanding schools.
Have you ever noticed where they ate the cover crop down to the ground? Like, does it not come back as well, or?
No, I haven't seen that, I guess. But we're monitoring it pretty close we don't want to get to that point.
Yeah.
We're trying to leave as much cover. We have as much trouble with getting dry and then these 70, 80 mile an hour winds coming up at night and blowing the residue off the field. But as long as you're leaving, and we're still leaving quite a little stubble, so it'll catch snow. And it makes a huge difference the next spring, even just catching some snow, what it does. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you all coming and listening to me. So.